Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel of education. My proposal for this session of this week it's about peer coaching. And I would like to make clear that the idea of peer coaching it's basically on sharing best practice across schools. And all these experience and this session is based on a workshop that I had the pleasure to attend a couple of years ago, led by Steve Barkley. So, Mr. Steve Barkley has a very interesting website that you have just there, the icon, and it will appear in the resources on the last slide. And this peer coaching process, this peer coaching system is basically the principle of sharing best practice in what Steve Barkley calls professional learning communities. So the idea is how can we support our students and the learning process of the students by sharing best practice across the professionals in the school. I'm pretty sure that we can all come up with many examples of colleagues that are extraordinary practitioners in several aspects of the teaching. And I'm pretty sure that all of us will benefit from learning from them in the same way that all of us have particular aspects in our experience that would be great to share with our colleagues to improve and to develop the teaching across the school. So the key terms for this session, the first one is what Steve Barkley calls PLC, which is a professional learning community. Then I will be talking about instructional coaching. And finally, I will be explaining what peer coaching is from my experience and what are the benefits of it. So when we look at what a PLC is, a professional learning community, is the consideration of a school as a community of learners, not a community of teachers, but learners. Teachers included, of course, that share best practice in order to develop and improve their teaching practices and strategies. So basically, how could we create a community of professionals that learn from each other and improve their teaching by having experiences with colleagues, observing, being coached, witnessing experiences, and then implementing those experiences into their own classrooms. At the end, in a school, we all teach the same students in one way or the other, and students have different results. So the input of the teacher makes a huge difference in the way we differentiate, in the way we approach each student, and in the way we can share that best practice. So what do we need to have a positive community of learners? From my point of view, we need an open doors policy. So a policy where all teachers are invited to observe and to be present in any classroom, where the doors of every classroom are open to anyone. That takes time. That needs to build confidence, trust, and we're going to see what are the benefits of this. Then we also need empathy, self-management, and effective skills to be well developed, to be able to observe without criticizing, observe looking for positive things, looking as well for things to be improved, obviously. We also need to have an open understanding on the recognition of strengths and weaknesses, but from our own behalf, looking at ourselves and realize that we do have certain strengths, but we also have certain weaknesses, and being able to look at our colleagues and see who could help us in particular aspects. Then we also need to have collaboration skills across the schools, across the teachers, being able to collaborate officially, but also unofficially during meetings, sessions, volunteer time. Basically, what we want is to realize and to think about what do students need us to learn. So it's changing the paradigm, isn't it? Changing the way in which we are used to do things. We're used to think on what do we want students to learn. What about if we start thinking about what do our students need us to learn to better adapt to their reality? The second key term is instructional coaching, and I've used one of the sentences from Steve Barkley, and is the effort to support teacher growth in order to enhance student learning. This professional development strategy facilitates change, improves teacher instruction, and helps to transform school culture. And I totally agree with this sentence. My experience says that once peer coaching is correctly implemented, it does facilitate change and it does transform the school culture. And all of a sudden, teachers, instead of working in isolation in their classrooms, considering that they master their subject and their content, they realize that they become vulnerable. They realize that colleagues can come and look with a critical eye, with critical thinking skills, the way we perform, the way we teach, with the intention of giving us good advice on how could we improve. And finally, the idea of peer coaching, another paragraph from Steve Barkley itself, occurs when educators learn from each other, and I've highlighted that, and I changed the color, I put it in red because this is for me crucial. The capacity to learn from each other through observation, feedback, self-reflection, and this is facilitated by the peer coaching culture, by collaboration skills that brings the capacity to share knowledge, insight, experiences, perspective that leads to maximizing the learning process of our students. So basically what is important to realize is that peer coaching is not evaluation because we don't have criteria to assess. We don't have success criteria. We do have official evaluations being done by heads of school or SLT members. This is not at all a way to evaluate anybody. This is not supervision either. And this is not mentoring. It's not mentoring because the goals, the targets are not set by the person who observes. The goals and the targets are set by the person who's being observed. So, and that's the big difference between mentoring and peer coaching. In peer coaching, the teacher being coached is in control of the situation because the teacher being coached decides what does he want to be observed on, when, and why. And this is crucial. Is a bottom-up process. Is the observee, the teacher observed, who decides every single aspect of the observation. That's extremely important. So this is the process of a good peer coaching procedure. Basically what we have is that as observees or as coached, we approach one of our colleagues, a colleague that we think has experience on a specific topic. It can be differentiation, it can be language, the use of language in classrooms, it can be assessment methods, it can be so many things that I'm sure each one of us can come up with. I would like to improve that bit of my teaching. So I'm going to look around, look at my colleagues and realize which one of my colleagues do I think has great experiences and great knowledge and can give me great advice on that particular thing. So what you think first in your pre-conference that you're going to meet with your colleague before the observation goes on. You meet with your colleague and you set up a list of objectives. And you say, okay, I'm looking for a precise learning outcome. In my case, the last time I did it was differentiation. So I went to one of the special educational needs colleagues and I said, well, I would like you to come and observe my grade 7 class and focus on my differentiation strategies. So that was my learning outcome. That was what I was looking for. And then in the pre-conference, I had a conversation with my colleague. And the first thing that we discussed is what I will do. I need to tell my colleague what they will see in my class. They need to come up, they need to come and observe and already have a clear understanding of what are they going to see and what they're expected to do. Basically, I approach my colleague and I say, I want you to observe in particular the differentiation strategies that I have implemented with this precise student. Because I realize that this student is not hitting top grades, and I think that is because his language barriers. So I've put in place certain strategies. Could you come and observe those strategies and give me feedback on it? So during the observation, the coach needs to focus on what the coached colleague wants. So the coach came to my class and observed and focused only on my differentiation strategies implemented for that particular student. And it's very important that the coach doesn't look at anything else. The coach is not a teacher. The coach is not an evaluator. He doesn't come into the classroom looking at everything. He's just coming to support and looking at whatever I've asked him to look at. This is the complexity of the role of a coach, is to do it properly and looking at only the learning outcome that has been agreed during the pre-conference. During the observation, the coach can take notes, can walk around, just needs to make sure that what he's observing is enough to give proper feedback after the observation. And that feedback happened during the post-conference, which should take place, if not immediately, no later than the next day. So when the experience is still fresh. And in that post-conference, the coach leads the reflection, gives feedback, but needs to be careful with the sentences he's using. He needs to use a positive language, not an evaluative language. We're not saying that was good, that was bad. We're just saying, you can start by, what do you think I have witnessed? What do you think I have observed? How do you feel of what you've done? What are your own opinions? And then the coach can start by saying, I think that, or what I witnessed was being clear and allowing for reflection from the person that has been observed. This process is, I agree, longer than what we think, because pre-conference, observation, post-conference needs time and dedication. But the outcomes, I can tell you, they're extraordinary. So, if we put this in place, what do we need for the peer coaching to be successful in our school from my point of view? We first need time. As I said, time to meet, time to observe, time to collaborate, time to reflect, time to give feedback. And it's not always the case, but time must be needed. Now, it might be the case that some schools want to implement peer coaching and the allocation of times comes directly from the SLT, but it's not always the case. We need to have an atmosphere of collaboration, and that's very important. We need to be open-minded, and we need to understand that if we do not collaborate, sharing best practice will never happen. We have to have an atmosphere of trust, confidence, realizing that our colleagues are professionals that have good advice to give us. For that, we need to be comfortable with discomfort. What I mean with that is that probably the worst experience that we can have as teachers is somebody coming into our classroom and telling us how are things going. Teachers have a tendency to be reluctant to be observed because they confuse observations with evaluation. So it's important to have that open door policy that I was talking about before and being comfortable with discomfort. And of course, what I think is extremely important is build a spirit of vulnerability. And I think that's crucial. Being able to realize that we don't excel in everything and we can be vulnerable and that we need to accept a different point of view, a different perspective, and a different opinion. And now a couple of questions for you in case you want to implement that in the school is, what about if we move forward? What will the next steps be? To what extent it is possible to have students peer coaching? Students peer coaching, not particularly you, your teacher, but peer coaching each other. Can you have peer colleagues, peer mates, peer coaching process amongst the students as a reflection process, as a peer assessment? Is this, another question that I have for you is, do you think that if we implement peer coaching, do you think that should be systematic? Should be regular? Or can only happen when needed? What do you think? To what extent we can create a team of coaches? Or do you think that everybody can be a coach? That will be interesting for me to find and to have your answers. So please make sure that you write on the chat your opinion on that, if you've done any peer coaching session, and what do you think about these 3 questions in terms of moving forward? Is it possible? Would it be positive? And then I would like to use a visual thinking routine linking to one of my previous sessions. How do you feel? Are you ready to be coached? Are you ready to coach? And if we use these De Bono thinking hat activities, what hat would you put on? Do you think that you are negative about it and put the black hat on, thinking that no, this will never work in my school because of whatever reason? Or maybe you want to wear your green hat on and think that, wow, I think that's a great idea and I can come up with different ways of implementing it. I'm a creative person and I have new ideas in sharing best practice on top of peer coaching. Maybe you want to wear and hopefully your yellow hat and think that this is absolutely amazing and I'm going to start doing peer coaching straight away. I'm going to find out more. I'm going to read more about it. I'm going to look at any of the different blogs that Steve Barkley has in his website, and I'm going to try to convince my colleagues to do peer coaching in school. What's your situation? What's your feeling? Share that, please. And of course, this is mainly the website that I was talking about, barclaypd.com, an extraordinary website with ideas, blogs, videos, sources, and the information used in this session comes basically from this website. So thank you very much for listening again. Please tell me if you think this session was useful. Please let me know if you're ready to be coached or if you're ready to coach. And I'll be very happy to share with you my experience and learn from your experience. Thank you very much. Bye.